Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Andrea and in this channel we talk all things business mindset, edtech, online teaching and teaching in general. Now in this video I'm going to be talking about how I got a teaching job here in Australia, teaching English to speakers of other languages. Now if you want to know how I got it and some of the tips that I can give you, then please keep on watching. If you're new and you really like this video, then make sure to just like it, subscribe, and comment down below what your thoughts are. Or if you happen to have any other questions, because I might turn this into a series. So yeah, we'll see. So by now you might be wondering, how is it possible that an Argentinian teacher of English can get a job teaching English in Australia where there are many people, here in Australia speaking English? Like, how's that possible? So basically there are several English teaching positions, whether they are, in primary schools, in secondary schools, as well as in private institutions. Personally, I got a job teaching English in a private institution. I know that it can be possible to get teaching jobs in, public schools, but the process is quite lengthy, as you have to register in the teacher registration board of the state that you're living, and it can take some months. And apart from that, it can be very expensive, considering that you have to, I would have to translate all of my documents and I would have to take an IELTS test. I have done that before coming to Australia, but the one that they ask is IELTS academic, and I took the IELTS general test. So yeah. It can be quite lengthy. So my experience would be only about, private academies that hire teachers who are not registered in Australia. Now you might be wondering why do people want to learn English in Australia if, in Australia many people speak English. So the reality is that one of Australia's market is basically English learners, so people who want to come to Australia to study English, as well as getting, a work permit, depending on the duration of the course, of course. You can work up to 24 hours when you are, taking classes, and if, you're on holidays, then you can work full-time. So this is basically one of the reasons why many people come to Australia to study English. It's not that I am actually teaching, English to Australians. I'm teaching English to speakers of other languages who come to study in Australia. Some of the preferred qualifications are, of course, a bachelor's, sometimes in any subject, but of course, if you have a bachelor's in education or any related majors, then it's, it's highly desirable. However, some people prefer it if you do have experience teaching English to other languages, which is, I believe, one of the reasons why I got hired. And then if you have a CELTA, that is a certificate in English language teaching to adults, or a Delta, or a CELTA and a Delta, or any other, TEFL qualification, it can even be like Trinity TESOL, that works as well. Again, as I mentioned, there is, I believe that there is a high demand for English language teachers. At the time of me recording this video, I think I saw like 287 openings online. Of course, this is just, it could be for private academies, or it can even be for public institutions like primary schools or secondary schools, but there is a demand for English teachers. And again, I think that one of the most important requirements is if you have experience teaching English to speakers of other languages or in a multilingual setting, then I think that that's super advantageous if you want to start teaching in Australia. One of the reasons being, and taking into account what I'm doing right now, I'm actually teaching a group of students who come from different backgrounds. They come from Brazil, Colombia, Korea, Vietnam, Indonesia, Thailand. So it's really useful if you already have experience teaching students who don't share the same mother tongue as you, because you will need those skills to teach such a diverse class. I'm not saying that if you don't have these, if you don't have the experience, you will not be able to get a job. Absolutely not, because I'm pretty sure that, that's up to whoever is hiring. But I will say that I think that because I have worked teaching English, in Argentina, in Italy, as well as in Russia, I was able to gain the skills necessary for me to come and teach English to students who don't share the same mother tongue as me, and who more often than not, they don't even have the same mother tongue themselves. So one of the things that you have to know is that here in Australia there are two major job portals. One of them is Seek, and the other one would be either it could be LinkedIn. To be honest, I haven't heard of anyone who has gotten an English teaching job through LinkedIn. That was I don't know, maybe someone has and I don't know, but from my experience, and the one that I got was through Seek, but I also got, I think, 1 or 2 interviews applying through Indeed, which is another job portal here that's it's popular in Australia. I would say that Seek is the most popular, and many people use it, so I would just go for it. There you can of course read all of the requirements and the essential criteria and the desirable criteria in terms of who they're going to hire or not. Another common thing would be to just, if you have seen one of my previous videos, which I'm going to link somewhere here, how you can find institutions through Google, so that you can send maybe a spontaneous application through email and see if they want to interview you or not, depending on whether they have openings available. Additionally, another thing that it's super important here in Australia, specifically if you're working with students who are under 18 years old, is you have to have an ochre card or a working with children check, which basically says that you can work with children, that it's safe for for the company to hire you because you don't have any previous criminal convictions regarding children's safety and such. I have applied for one. Sometimes, depending on the state and depending on the place where you're working, if you have applied, it can take up to I think up to 3 months for the card, because it's actually a card, to arrive. But with the receipt of your application, you can already start working. So that's also something that you have to take into account. If you want to come to Australia and you want to start teaching, especially in a setting where you will be teaching students who are under 18, then definitely consider getting a working with children check. I'm pretty sure mine cost like $81 or $90. It was less than $100. It was between $80 and $100. And if you are a volunteer, I'm pretty sure it's either for free or it's way cheaper, but you have a different working with children check. So you can have a working with children check for volunteering and a working with children check for employment. And from my understanding, if you apply as a volunteer, you cannot use the same one to gain employment. You will have to request for a working with children check for employment purposes. So once you have all of this, and even before you have this, but one of the things that I will say is that many of these jobs on LinkedIn, they will ask right away if you have a working with children check. So I would highly recommend you get one before you start applying. Don't do it the way that I did it. Then the second thing I think that is super important is your resume. I think I have done a few videos on what to include in your resume and what not to include in your resume. But if you want me to do another video, or probably if I haven't done it, I can just make another one. I can just make one regarding, what tips I have for someone who is trying to land a job as an English teacher in general, not only in Australia. Then just let me know, and let me know in the comments, and I'll make sure to make one video. Now, if you are successful, you will be interviewed either, through a phone call. Normally, here in Australia, people are used to, calling you before a video call or calling you before a face-to-face interview. So I would say that you have to have an Australian phone number. I have tried to get a job before coming to Australia, and I was unsuccessful, because more often than not they will call you before they actually arrange a video call with you. more, that was my experience. Maybe it's not for you, maybe it's different for you, but that was my experience here in Australia, and not only for teaching jobs, but also for also when it came to jobs in different industries. One important question would be, I mean, apart from the common ones, like, tell me about yourself, tell me about your experience, what do you think your weaknesses are, what are your strengths and such. I think that one of the most important questions, especially if you're coming to teach English here in Australia, is what strategies would you use, or what skills do you have when it comes to managing a class with students who come from diverse backgrounds, as well as how would you motivate them to keep on learning. So what I mean by this is that more often than not, some of these students just come for a few weeks and then they leave. And of course, schools want them, especially if they are, beginners, or if they are elementary, they want them to keep coming so that they can, take the rest of the courses. And so that's something that I was asked. And how would you motivate them? Also, because many of the students that come here do have a job, they will sometimes, come to the class and they will be like, their energy is nowhere to be found. They're basically, getting distracted, they are tired. So they would normally ask you, like, what would you do to motivate them? What would you do to, raise their energy level and such? And how could you, how you can support them through this process. Also taking into account that many of the people who come here to study in Australia are alone, or maybe sometimes they come with their families, but usually they come here alone, or sometimes with a partner, but it's not always the case. So that's why I'm pretty sure that diving into the experience that you already have and sort of explaining how you can use that experience to teach English to these students is going to be super useful. Particularly if you have already taught, intensive courses, because most of the courses here are 3 to 4 hours, sometimes even 5 hours per day. So you really have to come up with different things, with different games and different ideas, so that your students want to come up, want to keep coming, and they want to learn, and they want to, basically they improve the language skills. So now let's say that you have had the interview, you've been successful, then what's next? So here in Australia, there are different types of contracts. So there's a part-time, there are part-time contracts, there are full-time contracts, there are casual contracts, there are temporary contracts, there are even salaried positions. So that's more of like a more complicated topic. I will be talking about it in different videos, so make sure to, if you're not subscribed, make sure to subscribe so that you get a notification once I post the new videos. Or if you happen to have any questions regarding the contracts, then also make sure to leave a comment so that I can answer. But yeah, so more often than not, if you're coming to teach English and you're working for a language academy, more often than not, the contract that you will have is a casual contract. So with a casual contract, you will not be accruing holidays, and you will not be accruing sick days. So if you're sick, you're not getting paid. And if you want to go on holidays, then you can go on holidays, but you will not be paid for that time off. So just, bear that in mind. And you have to know that at least, actually many of the places that I have seen online and applied online, they use one type of a word. So here in Australia, each industry has its award, and in the award you have, how much money you will be making if you're working full-time, how much money you'll be making if you're working part-time, or in a casual on a casual basis, as well as which level. So level 1 would be, if I'm not mistaken, someone with little to no experience. Level 2, you have a little bit more of experience, maybe, a better qualification. Currently, I am, because of the experience that I had, I did not start in level 1 or 2. I started in a different level. But you may start from 1, from 2. It really depends on the qualification and the experience that you have prior to starting your job. And this depends, the higher the level, then the more you get paid. I am pretty sure that right now, the casual role, if you have a casual role and if you're level 1, I'm pretty sure the least they can pay you is $56. So the start, the starting pay would be $55, and then of course you get all the discounts and taxes, but it's around that 55. And then of course the deductions depend on, if you're a resident, if you're a student, if you are on a working holiday, and so that varies a lot. So now you have signed your contract, you are going to start working at that academy or wherever you're going to be working at. And what's next? So if you are already here in Australia, I'm guessing that you already are, or at least you have already done all of your paperwork. If you haven't, then you need to get a TFN number, which is basically like your tax ID number, and open a bank account. There are many banks here in Australia that are pretty popular. I would say that the most popular ones are Commonwealth Bank and NAB. But like different people have different banks as well. Like it's a matter of choosing which one you'd like, and so just open an account. After that, you have to send all of these documents to your company. Your TFN number, again, that's your tax ID, as well as your bank account details, so that they can of course deposit the money. And another important thing would be your superannuation fund, which is basically your pension fund. So basically your company will be paying money. They will be depositing money into your fund. Normally, if this is your first job, then you don't need to open an account. Usually the company, they will ask you if you already have one. If you already have one, then you give the details of the one that you have. But if you don't have one, then they can open one for you. So for example, because this teaching job is not the first job that I have here in Australia, this is actually my third job. I already had one superannuation account because my first job opened an account for me. So I've been using that account ever since. And if you want to leave Australia, depending on your visa conditions, if you're here on a working holiday visa, you can claim 35% of the money that you have there. But I'm pretty sure if you're coming here on a student visa and you're working, as an English teacher, you can get, I believe, 65% of whatever is in that superannuation fund. So once you have that, you send all of those documents, and now, here comes the best part, which is getting paid. So here in Australia, and, from my experience, this is my third job, more often than not, they will pay in, bi-weekly. So, no, you will work for 2 weeks, and then you will get paid on the third one, usually on a Wednesday or on a Thursday. And then again, you will work for 2 weeks, and then you get paid on the third one on a Wednesday or on a Thursday. So that's basically it. I do have a lot more to say about, getting a job here in Australia, but this was kind of like an overview of what my process was. And of course, if you do happen to have any, specific questions, make sure to leave them in the comments so that I can make a video talking about them. Make sure to subscribe, like this video, share it with your friends or whoever is trying to get a job here in Australia. And thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.